Call to order our Tarrant County Hospital District Board meeting for April 14th at 1:05 p.m. First, we'd like to ask Chaplain Dan Baker if he'll come forward and give us our invocation.
Thank you, sir. I did place on all of your places, I think, a advanced care planning guide. This is National Healthcare Decision Day. It's actually April the 16th, but all week we've had our office open and inviting people to stop by and do advanced directives. We've had probably about 80 to 100 people, some employees, some others. And some people say, can I go in there if I'm not an employee? And absolutely, yes. So if you haven't thought about it yet, please think about it. And I have some additional if others would like to have a copy of this today to sort of guide you in making those decisions. This is also a donor month, so we have our donor flag flying. And we, on April the 25th, a week from Monday, at 1:30, are going to unveil our donor memorial that we've been working on for a number of years. So all of you will get an invitation to that also. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Would you join me in prayer? Dear Lord, thank you for the spring when new things begin again. We love to see the wildflowers and the trees and the spring rains. And yet sometimes there's challenges as the wind is stronger than we anticipated. We weren't quite ready to stand against it. Would you prepare all of us as we're called on a great mission to help those that are in need and hurting, injured or sick, and hopefully bring some health to their lives and wholeness and make a difference in our community, no matter what comes our way. We ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes for March 10th, 2016. Entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved by Dorothy DuBois and second by Charlie Powell. Approval of minutes for March 10, 2016. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, the same sign. Next, have board chair report. I don't actually have a report, but I'd like to read something to you that just came in the mail. With special thanks to all of you, to know you is to know people who are kind, considerate, and thoughtful. To know you is to be grateful for the special things you do, for everything you've done, for being the special people that you are. Thank you so very much. How can I thank you for all you've done for me? I've enjoyed working with each of you more than you know. Your generosity left me speechless. Thanks for the recognition at the March board meeting and for making my retirement more than memorable. Love, D. Post.
Okay. Great.
Next is a CEO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to let you all know that we had the Joint Commission in to look at our program for AMI. And what we've been able to do is we passed that inspection hands down in a wonderful way. And that is due in large part to you as board members that allowed for the contributions financially for the new invasive labs and what we've been able to do in cardiovascular care. And now, and I know Dr. Johnson plays a key role in this, is having everything on one side of the street really improves quality. It improves the expeditious nature of getting people in. Should they have a heart condition and we have to react quickly, you don't have to transport them from one side of the street to the other. And when the Joint Commission came in, we were highly recommended for the situation that we found ourselves in, which was really good. So Joint Commission did a wonderful job. We're very appreciative and got that all approved. I wanted to give you guys an update on that, and thank you for all the work that you did to help with that. Also, thank you all for the board members that attended the service awards and the banquets that we had. It's just such an honor to recognize those people who've been with us for 40 years, 35 years, those kind of things just make a big difference. And we had a wonderful ceremony, and it was very, very nice. And we just have a lot of good people working at JPS. The other thing that's coming up on May 6th is our Golden Stethoscope Awards. That's where we highlight our nurses. We have Nurses Week and Hospital Week coming up. We always get an august speaker. We search the nation for the best speakers we can find. Your colleague, Roger Fisher, is our speaker this year, and he will be speaking to our nurses.
It wasn't a very lengthy search.
We have Mr. Fisher that will represent you as board members and talk to our nurses. And for those of you, many of you, and all of you at some point, certainly as board, will speak to that group. Everybody will get their opportunity. But we thank those of you who have spoke previously, and I know that it's been wonderful. And our nurses really appreciate that. It's a great opportunity for them to get to know you as a board. I know that they've gotten rave reviews from the past of all of you that have spoken. So that's what I have in my CEO report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Next, a department report. I'm going to ask our CEO to come back and speak to this on language services.
Well, Mr. Norton, I think one of the things that I probably got asked more than anything, and I continue to get asked more than anything, is how's the Affordable Health Care Act going to affect you? What's it going to mean? What are you going to do? And one of the things that we have at JPS that sets us apart is our strong language services department. We have some incredibly dedicated folks that help people bridge the gap of language. You might be surprised, and you're going to hear from Laura Burnside, you may be surprised at how many folks come through our front doors that English is not their first language. I had a meeting most recently with the new superintendent of schools in Fort Worth, and he was telling me the statistics of how many children are in our school districts where English is not the language that's spoken in the home. And so when you're not bridging that gap, you're going to lose. And it is emphasized, in my opinion, when you're not bridging that gap when it comes to medical issues. So Laura Burnside, although she's relatively new, in JPS terms, she's not new anymore. After you hit your second day at JPS, you're not new. And Laura is a blessing to us and done a great job thus far. And Language Services reports up to her. So I'd like for Laura, and we have a special guest from our Language Services, which Laura will introduce. But I wanted to bring Laura up and start our presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am very, very excited to share this story and to share a little bit about how we care for our patients that come through our halls every single day at JPS. And so I did bring a special guest with me. And I'd like to introduce Madiha to you. She has been an interpreter for 20 years. So she's been at JPS 7 years. So we're very, very blessed to have her as part of the team. She is well respected by her peers, by the team at JPS as a whole. And so I've invited her to kind of kick us off today. And then we'll go through some of the elements that Robert just mentioned as well. So Madiha, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. أنا اسمي مديحة. أنا النهاردة هكون مع حضرتك علشان أنت عندك عملية هيعملوا عملية كبيرة ليك وطبعا المفروض شوية تعليمات قبل ما تبتدي العملية. فأنا هشرح لك زي ما الدكتور هيقول أنا هقول بالظبط أترجم لك كل حاجة. طبعا حضرتك لازم تكون صايم ما تاكلش أي حاجة. الحاجة التانية هتقعد كذا يوم في المستشفى فإن شاء الله تجيب وممكن حد من العيلة عندك يكون معاك وهيبقى فيش بعض الألم بعد العملية دي. وطبعا أنا متأكدة إن الدكتور شرح لك إن العملية دي عملية كبيرة، فطبعا هتحس إن أنت تعبان. العملية دي هيبقى فيها فتح الصدر من هنا، تبقى عملية جراحية في القلب كابج، وطبعا هيبقى فيه وجع شوية هنا. فانت توقع ان بعد العمليه هيبقى في الم. الحاجه الثانيه عايزاك تعرفها ان انت ما تجيبش اي حاجه خاصه ليك، حتى الادويه. المفروض الادويه المستشفى هنا اللي هتديها لك، فمش محتاجين اي ادويه. وممكن حد يبات معاك، وممكن حد من العيله يكون معاك في المستشفى ويقضي وقت معاك، دي ما فيهاش اي مشكله. بس ما تجيبش اي محفظه او اي حاجه بس واحده، تجيب البطاقه بتاعتك عشان ايه نعرف ان انت الشخص اللي هيتعمل له العمليه. وطبعا في بعض الادويه المفروض توقفها قبل ما تبتدي العمليه، لانها دي بتعمل تمنيع للدم، فلازم توقفها قبل ما نعمل اي عمليه. الحاجه الثانيه، ما تاكلش ولا تشرب بعد الساعه 12، لانك هتاخد بنج تاني يوم، ومش عايزين البنج يتعب معدتك. والعمليه هتاخد وقت طويل، احتمال تبقى 8 ساعات او 7 ساعات، فانت لازم تكون محضر نفسك. والعيله بتاعتك هنطلع نقول لهم كل شويه ايه اللي بيحصل، وهنرشدهم للعمليه ماشيه ازاي، الاجراءات بتاعتها. والدكتور هيطلع بنفسه يكلم العيله ويطمنهم بعد ما تخلص العمليه. والحاجات التانية كمان بعد العملية هيبقى فيه بعض التمارين الخاصة والعلاج الخاص ليك، هيشرحوا لك عليها عند ما تيجي خارج من المستشفى. ولو في أي سؤال ممكن تسأل الدكتور، وأنا هقول لك هترجم كل اللي الدكتور هيقوله.
Can we get a motion to approve?
They say full immersion is the way best way to do it. You know,
So thank you so much. What she just gave were instructions for surgery. Thank you so much, Madiha, for joining us. So based on what you just heard,
Thank you.
based on what you just heard, how are you going to prepare for that surgery that you're having tomorrow?
First, I'll wash my hands.
First, are you going to fast? Are you going to? How long will you be in the hospital? Will you be admitted? Will you not be admitted? Can your family stay with you? All of these are questions that come through our patients' minds every single day when they come through the walls at JPS. And if you can imagine the confusion that you were feeling when please come in. If you can imagine when what you were experiencing when she was talking, you can't understand anything that she said. And our patients feel that every day too. So our interpreter team has a wonderful opportunity to be able to connect dots for people that wouldn't necessarily be able to do that without their services. So this is actually the case for about 1 in 4 households in North Texas. So about 25% of our residents in this area speak English not at all in their home or as a second language. And so they feel the same confusion that you all were sitting here thinking, what is going on, every single day. The reason we brought Madiha here is she speaks Arabic. And Arabic is one of the top 3 languages that we interpret for every day at the hospital. So I wanted you to get a little bit of feel for that. The Joint Commission has part of their standards are enforcing the fact that we actually have an interpreter department that can provide written and verbal interpretation and translation for our families and our patients that visit us. It also is the law that we have an interpretation department. This is not just a nice to have for us, but it is actually a must have for us. It's part of Title VI, part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And it actually states that we improve access for services with people with limited English proficiency, and that we we offer cultural and linguistic appropriate service standards for our patients as well. It also is the right thing to do. It's the right thing for people to come to the hospital and understand what great care actually is. So not a luxury for us. It's a must-have. Our goal at JPS is to make sure that we meet the needs of our patients, and we see a variety of patients at JPS on a daily basis. So it's been really interesting as I've been getting immersed, and I'm kind of sad to think that I'm not new anymore, because I sort of thought I could ride that boat for a while, but but apparently here we are. But as I've been getting immersed in JPS and in language services, and really getting a feel for what does this mean at JPS, something as simple as the word once, ONCE. In English, that word means one time. In Spanish, that word means 11 times. So imagine the difference in medication distribution if we get that wrong. So our interpreters help with those miscommunications, potential miscommunications all day long. Also, date of birth in America is given month, day, year. Most other countries, if not all, are not in that order. And so if we do not get that right, the patient identifier that we utilize most frequently at the hospital could actually give us different medical records for different patients. And so that's also one of the things that we reinforce and work directly with our clinical team on. The other piece of this is that oftentimes surnames are different than what we have in America. And so, for example, my first name is Lara. It's spelled Lara, and that is a very common name for Hispanics. So if that gets mixed around, and my last name was something that could also be a first name, you can see how that transposition could really cause some major problems for us at the hospital. So we work every day for health and safety and quality measures, so that we support our clinical team as translation services and also as interpretation. So also it's been really fun for me, because we have such synergy with our diversity division and with the work that's being done there, for us to be able to really see culturally what happens with our department and that synergistic approach that we're taking. A lot of things have come up that have been very eye-opening and enlightening for me. A couple weeks ago, I was actually in a patient's room, and I was rounding with a colleague of mine, and this family had just had a new baby, and so they were very excited, and the new mother did not speak English at all, and the new father did. They had 2 other children at home, which we were able to find out. And so as we were getting ready to just sort of wrap up our rounding session with them, we said, how are your other kids going to feel about this new baby that you're bringing home? And I expected them to say, oh, they're excited, or they're, nervous, or not so happy about this, or whatever. But the response was, oh, I'm sure they'll touch her a lot. Okay, we said feel, right? So that is a translation that doesn't happen very well to other languages. And so again, our interpreters are able to help bridge those gaps where we may not be able to, we may not even recognize it. Also, I have been fascinated to learn this. Quality and safety and service go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. They just work together. And our Arlington clinic actually has a very large percentage of Coptic Christians that participate in care at that particular clinic. And what I have learned about that group is that they either fast or on a very strict vegan diet for 271 days a year. Now, what that means for us when it comes to interpretation is that we have to understand that culture, or if we run lab tests, for example, during a time where they're fasting, their results can come back skewed, and we could potentially provide treatment that they don't actually need. So they may come back showing anemic, for example, when they're not actually anemic. So that also has been very, very fascinating. The other thing that's come up a lot is that preventative medicine is actually very common in America, but not in other countries. And so our interpreter team actually has the opportunity to educate on the opportunities and the importance of preventative medicine, so that we can make sure we, again, meet those cultural needs, and also meet the needs of our patients. I asked my team to color code a map of the world of all of the languages that we speak at the hospital. So here you go. Not many that we don't speak on a regular basis. We actually have 44 languages that are interpreted every single day at JPS. Last year, we do this in 3 ways. So we have people, like Madiha, that you saw, and then we also have a language line, and then we have a video remote interpreter that you all approved for us, and we thank you for that, and I'll show you the results of that in just a minute. But last year, we had 128,200 encounters for just our people, the people component, and that totaled 1,923,000 minutes. It's pretty impressive. That's our people portion. Our language line actually allows us access to 150 different languages. Last year we had almost 69,000 phone calls that were made to that language line, and just under 1 million minutes that were tallied. Our video remote interpreter is the new opportunity that we have to serve our patients well, and even better than we have in the past. There are 13 languages that are available from that system right now, and they continually update that, so that continues to grow every month. So far, since November, when we started utilizing this particular system, we have just under 104,000 minutes that have been used. So huge need for us at JPS and to provide language services for people. I'm really proud of this team. They have gotten certifications that are really terrific. So the Cross-Cultural Healthcare Program has given them a couple of certifications. So one called Bridging the Gap for Medical Interpreter Authorized Trainer, and then an additional cultural competency in healthcare as well. This department has received the Humanitarian Award from Academic Affairs 3 times, so I'm really proud of that too. And we have our very first nationally certified trainer, which is a big deal for us at the hospital. So we're working on that. Our goal is to get 25% of them certified over the course of the year. But we have 1 so far, and that was a big deal for us, so we're very excited. And then also, when the Joint Commission surveyors were at the hospital, they actually recognized JPS as a best practice for interpretive language services. So we're really proud of that. So I'd like to show you what's happened since we have enhanced the way that we can communicate with patients at the facility. And I want to show you specifically what's happened since November when we began the video remote interpreter. So when you look at this graph, right here, at this point in time, is where the VRI, which is the video remote interpreter, started. So you can see the progress that's been made. It's huge changes. We heard such great things from the staff about how easy it was to utilize. And, you know, language is not just words. Language is body language and tone of voice and all of that. And this video, it's like Skype, if you will. So it allows us to be able to see that in a different way than what we can even with the language line. So it's highly accessible to our team, which is good, but we're seeing huge shifts. This graph represents communication about medication. So that is obviously very important to us at making sure that our team realizes, or our patients realize what kind of things they need to know about their meds. We are in the top of the country right now. So just to orient you to this graph, this bar right here shows us percentile ranking, meaning how we compare with our peers across the country. Our latest results, this is February, which has the most closed, and we're in the 93rd percentile, which means we're in the top 7% of the country when it comes to communication about medications. It's a big deal. This is our communication with doctors. Again, we are in the top of the country when it comes to how we communicate with patients from the physician level. And you can see that increase from November on up too. So you can see just a really nice trend line going up in this. This is communication with nursing. Again, we're in the top of the country when it comes to communication with nursing as of February. So we're very, very proud of the work that our team is doing. Discharge instructions. Once again, we have seen improvement here. We're in the top 25% of the country when it comes to how we inform about discharge instructions. Respect for patient preferences. As you can imagine, 44 languages spoke every single day. We see a variety of cultures, and so for us to be able to be in the top 10% of the country when it comes to how we manage preferences for our patients is a big deal. So it's part of the great work that's being done by the team at JPS, and I'm very proud of their efforts. And then again, being able to see the Rate the Hospital results appear in the top 8% of the country overall, and that's the hospital as a whole for how they rate their overall experience is just absolutely phenomenal. So I'm very, very proud of the team. So thank you for your help in allowing us to serve our patients as well as we can. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point if you have them. Sure,
Go back to the last slide.
certainly.
Now, I see all the graphs and the numbers, but I don't understand, okay, so you have communications with nurses. Who's communicating, I'm assuming that our patients are communicating to nurses. Who's
Yeah.
reporting these numbers? Where's this
So,
come from?
thank you. This is actually our patient experience data, and it's collected by a company named National Research Corporation. We randomly sample our patients and their families. Sometimes family members complete the surveys. And this is their perception of the care that they're getting at the hospital. So, for example, communication with nursing incorporates how well did our nurses listen and how often did they do it. How often did they explain things in a way that they could understand, and how often did they show courtesy and respect to that family.
And is it a 1 to 5, or is
It's
it a-
actually an always, usually, sometimes never scale.
Okay.
And the only numbers that you're actually seeing reported on these graphs are that top box score of always. So if it's not always at JPS or any other hospital, it really kind of is never. So we work on consistency and making sure that we're providing the very best care that we can, always.
So if all of our patients reported usually, then I'd see a 0 across here?
You would not see it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very tight reporting. CMS has built in a lot of parameters that make sure that we're standardizing care and that we're as consistent as we can possibly be. So every patient deserves the same experience every time they come.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes?
What is our average number of surveys that you are sending out
So-
and getting back?
Yeah, so we actually, we send out about 25 to 30% of patients will send surveys. We get back somewhere around 11 to 12. However, we changed our modality as of January 1st, and so we're getting more back at this point in time. So when you look at this graph, for example, N size is down here, and we have 418 surveys were returned in February. So that's 418 people and that returned surveys and allowed us to be able to experience these type of results. And again, I'm very proud of the team.
So when you say you changed the modality, what
Yeah.
did you change?
So we used to send paper surveys only, and we now do phone surveys as
Oh,
well.
okay.
And then if they don't answer their phone, then they receive a paper survey.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My pleasure. Yes.
You mentioned that the spelling of your name was
Yeah.
confused with the Spanish surname.
Yes.
Do you find any problems with the Asian
Yeah.
thing that they put their surname first?
Yeah, so a lot of countries do, we find that. And so that's part of the work that our interpreter team does, is making sure that they are culturally aware and that they are confirming and reconfirming information so that we don't end up with multiple medical records for one patient. Because obviously if we've got 2 or 3 different records for one patient, we don't necessarily know what that history has been.
Part of the reason that our graphs and our numbers are the way they are is because of the action that this board took. When we debated
Yep.
to have the video capabilities, to Laura's point, if you're getting that just on the phone, it's a difference when you see body language, and it's a big difference when people can interact with somebody who's interpreting. When you can say, I don't understand what that means. And the reason that we wanted to have you listen to the Arabic side is, as folks living in America speaking English, there is a belief that everyone speaks English. And if you were in an environment where that's all you heard and you knew you were going into surgery, it would be quite a challenge. And so our interpreters have not only done a great job of dealing with our patients, but their families as well. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But I do really want to thank you as a board, because you've given us the ability on these initiatives to make those numbers really grow. And the video aspect of that is a significant reason why our numbers are above national averages.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you. Yes?
Just as an end user of this, and
Yeah.
to Mr. Early's point, as an end user, there is an absolute difference between the language line and this video interpretation. When you're looking, I use this video remote interpreter 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And there's an absolute difference in the way the patient receives that communication. With the language line, they're appreciative that we do it, but they actually smile when they see a face in front of them.
Yes.
And they're speaking their language, and they get all that nonverbal. Aside from that, timing.
Yes.
Sometimes, as busy as these folks are, sometimes our Spanish translators just can't get there, and so families are twiddling their thumbs. These things, they're on little stands, but they're literally just iPads.
Yep.
And even I can use one of them. You just literally, the screen pops up, and you push a button that for the language that you want, and a person shows up with a little headset, and they ask for the patient's medical record number, and the patient's looking at them, and then you just go right away. The language line had one other has a shortfall that we've been able to capture some with here, sign language.
Yes.
A lot of people don't think of, that is
Right.
another language.
That's right.
And it is, as you can imagine, impossible to do sign language translation through a telephone.
That's true.
I know over the past 5 years, I've only seen one sign translator. I'm sure we have more.
We do.
But it's a very limited resource to the extent that actually the chairman of our department, Dr. Davenport, is fluent in American Sign Language. So he would run around the hospital doing American Sign for different services.
Yeah.
And this is just, it's been remarkable. So from the
Yeah.
clinician
Oh, so
standpoint, thank
glad.
all of you. It's been the best thing.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. We've heard that house-wide, so I think most of the employees echo your comments. Thank you for sharing that.
Laura, so the video system is used in emergency also?
It's used house-wide. Yeah. It's been interesting. Again, I ask a lot of questions because I like to know, are things working or not? And this is, there are certainly, some things that we're working on to make sure it's as polished as it can be. But it is amazing how many people compliment the use of this.
How long does it take to get, have you tracked, I should say, the time frame from the need to the arrival to meet that need? So I mean, if you got a patient, you're going to surgery or whatever, or emergency.
Yeah. So from the people perspective, yes, we do. We measure that all the time because if after 15 minutes they're not there, then that's a red flag for us. To Dr. Johnson's point, the video itself or the language line is immediate. So as soon as you make that call, push that button, that service comes right up. It's instant.
Let me go back and ask that again.
Okay.
Emergency comes in now.
Yes.
You need an interpreter.
Yes.
So is there a video system there in
Yes.
ER
Yes.
already?
Yes. They're located all over the hospital, so that's an immediate need fix for any type of language. Yes. Yes.
At the risk of being wrong, I have been a doctor for 53 years. I have seen this interpretation, needs for interpreted, back in the early, we didn't have interpreters.
Right.
And I would like to give a little anecdote to illustrate this. In 1980, I was director of anesthesia at Parkland. I was a faculty of medical school. One night I had a patient, a Spanish lady who needed a C-section. She was failure progressed. I went in to talk to her. She obviously didn't understand me.
Right.
So I looked for an interpreter. Well, usually there was a nurse that spoke Spanish, but not that night. The nurse is taking care of her, said, her husband's in the lobby, I'll go get him. So that's the other side of that, nurses or family. So he came in, and he was not Spanish, he was American. Anyway, I explained to him his wife needed a C-section, I needed to give her a spinal, could he explain that to her? He said, do you know what a spinal is? He says, yes. We walk into the room, he walks over to his wife's bed, and he stands there like this. He turns his back to her, points at his back, raises his voice, and says very loudly and very slowly, They need to give you spinal.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way, that's right.
Thanks to Laura and what she's doing.
Yeah, we've come a long
What a
way.
great department, yeah, great job.
And she responded, I don't know what you just said.
She said,
Obviously understood more English than she let me know when I was.
she said, not that long.
Maybe she couldn't hear him.
Thank you, yes.
Laura, do you have these things on iPads or something like that so you can take them from room to room as needed, or is it?
What, the video remote? Yeah, they're actually iPads that are on stands, and we wheel them. So each area has multiple depending on volume, and they wheel them from patient to patient as they need them.
Residents can also do video stuff. And it doesn't have to be just for their patient, and they can do it for other patients as well. That's why I was wondering, is it mobile, is it easy to?
Yeah, we can move it around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Laura,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
A comment that will help the live streaming and the video aspects of this. If you're sort of looking at the microphone, it's going to pick up your voice better. So if you're turned this way and you don't see a microphone in front of you, then it's a little more difficult to be heard. And the other thing, Mr. Chair, if you'll indulge me, I wanted to let you all know that I left out of my CEO report that Mr. Manius's team in purchasing from the county has worked exceptionally well with the JPS team as we look at the consultant's RFP for what we're doing on our potential bond package and what we're looking at. And I want to tell you, I've not seen cooperation that's been any better than that. They are wonderful. They're working with the county, working with our team. I know that Mary Ann Roth and Scott Rule, Bill and Sharon are meeting with them, led by Mary Ann and Scott, and we have additional meetings with them. Jack and the team from the county and GK have done an incredibly good job at working with us. And the court members, those who appointed you to this, got a rough draft of that RFP last week, and then they got a final draft of it this week, and it will be presented before the Commissioner's Court. That's an open record. All of you can have availability to that. If you'd like hard copies of it, we'll be happy to get those to you. But that whole process is moving exceptionally well. So my thanks to the county and my thanks to the JPS team. They're doing really well.
I think maybe that might have been a little the cart before the horse, because I don't think everybody is totally informed of that. That we might want to do a kind of a time to explain
Okay.
how that process started.
You bet.
Okay.
You bet. And when would you like for me? Would you like for me to go through a part of that now, or would we like to do a briefing on that?
I think they would need that paperwork.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Okay.
I'll make sure that that happens.
Okay. Dr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. The Medical Executive Committee met on April 12th, just last Tuesday. The prime update we need to make is to ask you to consider approval of Dr. Janet Miles as Chair of Pathology. Dr. Miles has over 15 years' experience as a pathologist and as a leader in pathology. She comes to us, most of her work was done in the Kansas City area. She's been with us for over 6 weeks full-time. She has been, her chairmanship has been voted upon and approved by her department. She's met with Mr. Early as well. She's already began several things with related process improvement, related blood transfusion and lab testing, and we're excited to present her as a candidate for your approval.
Just as a reminder, Dr. Miles was before the quality committee and made a presentation and explained herself and what she was here doing at that time. So those of you who were at quality may remember her.
Mr. Chairman, based on that, and do you need a motion for the approval of this? And I just asked Dr. Johnson, I knew I was at that meeting, I think most people there were very impressed. Based on that, I would make a motion for approval. of Dr. Miles.
Second.
2 seconds.
Dorothy.
Heard somebody over there.
I did it.
It's moved by Charlie Powell and second by Dorothy DeBose to approve Dr. Janet Miles for the chair of pathology. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposes? Same sign. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is that it, Dr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
I thought maybe you want to tell us about another committee that you're over.
You mean one of the 8?
Is there another one?
9?
We can get some more for it.
We can get you on another committee.
Now, committee reports, item 9 on our agenda. First is Human Resources Committee report. Mr. DeBose.
The HR committee met on March the 28th. We received an update on the diversity and inclusion review, phase 1, which consists of interviews with the community leaders, employees, patients, and other stakeholders. And that portion has been complete, and when the report is complete, will reflect a snapshot of JPS' current situation and will be presented to the full board. We have 3 items on the consent agenda today, which is the required resolution for our pension plan. We have a closed session item that I'll discuss today. Recommend that the days to the 3rd next new appointment for specialty clinics be removed from the 2016 annual incentive plan. We will continue to monitor specialty clinics, but we will not have that as a part of the annual plan. So that is coming as a recommendation. So I kind of need a second on that.
I would second that. No complaint.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, actually, on the annual incentive plan. Motion by Mr. Bolton, second by Dr. Lowry. All in favor?
Aye. And just for follow-up,
Any
I'm sorry.
opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, and just for follow-up, the HR committee did revisit the diabetic chronic health bundle, but concluded we would continue to monitor it, but would not be on the annual plan. Dr. Weber had asked us to look at that, and he was there, and we thought that we would monitor it, but would not have it as a part of the 2016. That concludes my report.
On the governance committee report, I'd like to ask Mr. Ron Skillings if he would come forward.
He's coming. He's coming.
Would like to ask him to explain a process that we did at the governance committee. We're going to do some voting as we look at enterprise risk management. And
all right. Well, good afternoon. And I know I've had a chance to speak with many of you about this, and for some of you, this might be the second time to have gone through this process. Is it good? Okay. But what I wanted to take the opportunity to do before we move too far down the path and appoint council with chair and governance committee feedback is to give you all a quick update on the enterprise risk management process and to quickly get your input as to what you believe to be the key risk to JPS as it relates to accomplishing our goals, our destination metrics that we have to accomplish over the course of the next year. So, let's see, it's the clicker. Let's see. Okay, so I guess the first update in terms of quick overview is the ERM process, the enterprise risk management process, and I know we spent a little bit of time on this in some prior meetings, so I won't go into all of these phases, but up to this point, we have been focusing on the first 2 phases of the ERM process. And the first 2 phases primarily involve identifying, what is ERM, identifying what our risks are in general for JPS, what framework and what risk dialogue are we going to use. And so over the last 8 months or so since I've joined JPS, and it's kind of gone by quick, I would agree with Laura. I guess I can't say I'm new anymore. that's what we've been working on, as well as establishing oversight, what the oversight structure is going to look like. And so to this point, these enterprise risk management reports have been given to the governance committee. And so the oversight structure is that I'll give periodic reports at every governance committee meeting, and then periodically come to the full board to give you an update as well. I need your input and to help you to understand where we are in the process. And so where we are today, which is designated by that yellow star, is finishing the assessing risk and developing responses phase. And so that included the risk assessment process, and just by way of review, shortly after I started last fall, I had a number of interviews and conversations with all of the board members, as well as all of the senior leadership team and several other members of senior staff around risk in general and what they saw as what our biggest challenges are at JPS in overcoming to accomplish our goals. And just as a brief reminder, enterprise risk management is really focused on what are the risks to accomplishing organizational objectives. And so in the JPS terminology, that would be our destination metrics, that would be our what's called our organizational goals, which are 15 of those that are tied to metrics. And so this is not done in a vacuum. It should be and has been coordinated with what the organization is currently working on and what there are already plans around. And so I'm trying to make it synergistic with what our goals are. So where we are now is, from a risk assessment standpoint, is that we've had 2 rounds of voting, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And what we've developed is an overall categories of enterprise risks. And the first round of voting was with Mr. Early's senior management team. So all of the senior leaders were in one of his meetings, and we took some time to go through and made a selection. The second round of voting was most recently in the governance committee meeting, at the last governance committee meeting, and that was interesting as well. From that, we had some input, but it was noted that since all the board members were not in governance, and since this is going to be a key initiative, we wanted an opportunity for all of the board members to have an opportunity to provide input. So that's why it is here before you again today. So once we go through this last round of risk validation, we will then go into really the work of this, which is at the top of that slide, moving from risk assessment and into risk management. And the risk management piece is where the work is, and that is, now that we know here are the top 10 risks to JPS based upon board and leadership input, what does that actually mean? What are we doing at JPS and how are these aligned to all the goals and destination metrics, and then developing a reporting structure that I can report back to you as the board and to senior management as to how we're doing with those action plans to mitigate and address those risks. Does that make sense? And so I won't go into the last 3 phases. We're not there yet, but there'll be much more to come in terms of kind of where, how to flesh this out and identifying the current state and where we'd like to be. So the framework that we're using, and some of you that are in technology may have seen this framework before, and it's a common framework called the Capability Maturity Model. And the Capability Maturity Model is initially was developed by Carnegie Mellon for an IT maturity, but in risk management literature, this has also been used as a leading practice model for identifying the maturity of a process and thereby the risk associated with that process. And so at the bottom, it starts at the bottom of the scale from initial process maturity, which is, you have a lot of ad hoc and chaotic processes. All of us can relate to that. Dependent upon individual heroics of you have a star player that if that person wasn't here or something happened to that person, then things wouldn't happen. And it's usually defined by just do it attitude. We don't have a lot of process in place. We're just kind of doing it the best we can. Up to repeatable, which is more intuitive. Processes are established and repeating. Reliance upon people continues, but at least there is some consistency in it, and there's a common language. Defined, the third step is it has now both a quantitative and a qualitative aspect to it, meaning that there are documented policies and procedures that support the process so that people can do it on a consistent basis. and is usually defined by more uniformity and more rigorous methodologies. Then manage, the fourth step, is more quantitative. Risks are measured, managed quantitatively. There's dashboard metrics you can actually see progress in the process that can be reported upon. And those metrics are aggregated enterprise-wide so that you can, at an overall level, and then in JPS speak, at the destination metric level or at the overall organizational goal level, you would be able to see where we are and how we're trending in accomplishing those particular goals. And then finally, optimized at the top of the chart has all of those elements, and then includes risk management as a source of competitive advantage. So, meaning that risk at its very nature is what could go wrong, but the opposite of risk is opportunity. And so, opportunity costs, identifying competitive advantages that JPS we would have in not only accomplishing our goals, but being able to better serve our stakeholders. And that's best in class process. And so that's the scale. And so as we move and mature in this process, one of the things I asked the senior leaders to do was, for each of these top 10, once we get to the top 10, where are we as an organization in this maturity model today? Where would we like to be in 18 to 24 months? And then that's where the gap analysis comes in. Is okay, here's current state, here's where we'd like to be. So if we're in a process at initial and we'd like to be at defined, what exactly does that mean? And that's where the risk management piece comes in. I'm going to stop there. I kind of went to that quickly. Any questions on that?
How would you currently define us? Are we initial?
As it relates to what?
Risk.
Yeah. Compared to what?
That was good, Ron.
Right.
My next question is.
It depends.
Different processes, right, are at different stages of maturity.
That's exactly right. And I would also state that it is not always the goal to be at optimized. It is not always the goal to be at optimized, because optimized by its nature is best in class. It would infer that there is capital investment, that there's people investment, that there's significant time and effort on the process side. And depending upon the nature of the risk, it may not be, from a risk reward standpoint, best for JPS to have everything at optimized. There might be some that you'd want to pick. I just wanted to make that mention, because by the nature of this chart, it would lead you to believe that everything would need to be at optimized. So,
Get an answer.
so let me go back. So, where we are from a risk management standpoint, overall we have some processes in place. So we're not starting from a whiteboard, and so I think my assessment is that we're a little bit above initial and in between initial and repeatable, but we have some processes in place. The things are repeating. We actually, in some areas, are in the defined category around policies and procedures. But overall, which was your question, I think we're approaching repeatable. And so hopefully through this process we can move forward.
That's based on just work and performance we've been doing thus far. That's not based on any ranking, though.
No. This based on, honestly, it's based upon all the input that I've received thus far in terms of what we're currently doing. And so when you say risk management, it does not mean, and I want to be clear about this, it doesn't mean by me saying that we are doing a terrible job at JPS in managing risk. What I mean is it hardwired? Is it documented? Is it consistent? And there are pockets of excellence. I'll just say that, and that are close to being optimized. I'll say that as well. And so it's to your point. It's a variety, and so you kind of have to take an aggregate. What I'd like to get to is away from the qualitative. What I'm telling you is more qualitative in nature, and give you something a little bit more quantitative that you can make that assessment yourself.
Because once we play that little toy here in a minute, then that could go back and almost redefine what Steve just asked. Where are we on the initial allocation? Wouldn't it?
It could. What we select as our top risks does not mean, and I'm glad you brought this as a question, what we select as our top 10 does not mean that those are the only 10 things that JPS is going to be working on. There's a lot more than 10 things that JPS is focused on. What the literature suggests is that to get some traction in enterprise risk management, you have to have a defined, concise list so that you can get some early wins, so that I can demonstrate to you, what this looks like tangibly, because up to this point, this has been an academic conversation. And so how do you get this to be tangible to where not only the board and senior management, but also, most importantly, the front line can see this and feel this and see how that relates to what they do. Which then leads us to what we've developed is our enterprise risk universe that many of you have seen before. And this risk universe are high level what the broad risk categories are for JPS based upon the input we've received thus far. And this is a living document. It's already been tweaked a couple of times based upon your feedback, and it likely will be again. But I tried, and this is not the same for any organization. Every organization is different. And so because how we organize our goals and objectives, this is organized at the top by strategic risks as that top slice. And then in the middle, which is the majority of the risks, are based upon the pillars. And because most of our objectives at JPS are aligned to one of those 6 pillars. And each of these risk categories aligned in one form or fashion to one of our organizational goals, one of our destination metrics, and other initiatives around JPS. And then at the bottom slice is compliance, predominantly in my area, but in other areas as well, because it includes legal, contracts, regulatory and financial reporting, regulatory compliance. The reason why those aren't in one of the buckets is that they cut across the organization and are required, just as a part of doing business in healthcare, for us to have strong controls around regulatory compliance, to have a strong compliance program, and so forth. And so you won't necessarily be voting on the compliance risk today, because they're not necessarily they go across the organization. We're required to do those. I will be giving reports on how we're doing against those in the compliance reports that I give to the governance committee. That makes sense? So here's before. So the last part of this is the fun part, or at least I think it is. I'll kind of set this up to orient you. So these risk categories that are in red, that are on the screen, are the ones that will be grouped in the next 7 slides for you to vote on. And those of you that went through this one. So the reason why they're highlighted in red is, and I just noticed one, April, the authority and accountability is actually one that should have been highlighted red, but it's on the slide to vote on. There are 29 of these that are above the compliance line that will be grouped. So there'll be a slide on each of the pillars. So that's 6, and then there'll be 1 slide on strategic. So there'll be 7 slides grouped with those red risks. Those risks are defined for you in your packet. I also had April at your place to put a handout so you don't have to flip through the definitions for each of these, so you can see the definition before you make your selection as to which you believe is the most important. So does everyone get the definitions? Okay. All right. So that's what I just went through the instructions, see if I covered everything. So in each grouping, you're going to select one risk that you believe to be the most important for us accomplishing our goals in that particular pillar or the strategic category. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, like yourself and many here, I was at governance. Do I get to keep the higher of my 2 scores?
If you remember them.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it pass or fail?
Yeah. Can we average out?
Yes. No worries. No worries.
I enjoyed your presentation.
Yes.
Governance also.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I didn't put the prior results up here to bias the vote this time. I wanted it to be a fresh look at this. So
I'm just trying to keep Dr. Lowry from copying mine.
Copying your paper, yeah. So just to make sure that your remote controls work, I have a practice polling question, and that we're going to use. These next 2 slides are the definitions, as I mentioned, that you have at your place. There are 29. So here's the practice polling question. I just want to make sure that all the technology works before we start. So it's one question. A dilemma typically has only one clear solution, true or false. And this came from the board training that we recently did.
So what you're saying is that there is a right answer and a wrong answer.
Yes, that would be correct in this particular case. In this particular case.
Legal question?
Although I don't see the.
Boy, that's very philosophical.
I don't see this.
You know,
Yeah.
tricky,
Okay.
a little tricky.
I think our, because there's supposed to be like a bar down at the bottom there, but I don't. Let me see. Yeah.
I'm already voted.
James and I voted.
I'm gonna vote again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote again.
I'm gonna vote
It's fixed.
That was your answer right there.
All right,
All right.
That wasn't y'all's answers.
Trick question. So do we vote, or?
We did.
Yeah, you did.
Oh.
It was trying
It was a flash.
Oh, do I need it? Okay.
No.
I voted for you.
That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
All right.
Here we go, we're voting again.
Wait.
Now, he's trying to show the answer.
Here we go.
We need to make sure it works.
I'm very impressed with this system, by the way.
Is that Charlie's school?
Maybe if we tried it in Spanish.
Is now a good time to mention it was designed at Texas A&M? You got it bad.
Okay, so I think we have it worked out. If you could vote one more time, I want to make sure it works. So I should.
Texas Wesleyan's first game is with Texas A&M when football starts.
Everyone put their vote in?
I'm sharing.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, get sharing.
How many times did I vote?
All right, should we have 10? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
All right.
Look at you.
Great.
There we go.
Very nice.
Oh, careful, careful. All right, yes, a dilemma has more than one clear solution. Yeah, that is correct. I'll make
We
sure.
weren't asleep at the training session.
Yes, I'll make sure to tell the extra people that they're real proud. All right, so here we go. The first question. Let me make sure. I'll click it again. Okay, try to get the bar on there. Okay, there we go. The first question deals with the strategic area. Choose one of the following risks you believe to be the top strategic risk that must be addressed to continue to advance our organizational mission, vision, and values. And again, the definitions of each of the A through E are at your place. Oh, do I need to open? Oh, hold on. Let me see. Okay. Polling is open now for this question.
Now,
Oh, okay, now we can vote.
Yes.
Oh, it gives a green light when you're.
I already got a green light going, so.
We have 9. One more person? There we go, 10. Okay, so strategic partnerships was by consensus chosen. Interesting.
No, it's not a consensus. It's not even a plurality.
Yes, 30%.
Barely
3 out of 10. 3 out of 10, yes. It got the most votes, I should say. It's better than
Got the
consensus.
plurality.
Yes, better term, yes. Quality risks.
Are we voting now?
Come back. Okay. Oh, it takes a couple minutes to open, okay. Oh, okay, now it's open.
I picked some other color than red.
I know, I can't see anything. I know.
Got 8 so far, 9, one more 10, there we go. Oops. Clinical quality. Just the,
I won every one of these, by the way.
Very good.
all right.
So apparently we don't care if we're accredited.
Oh,
We've got that mastered.
Or we could say we have it mastered.
We have
That's-
mastered accreditation.
We passed this year.
Wait a minute, if we're not accredited, we won't be open.
Right, we
None
won't
of
be
the
open.
rest matter.
Yeah.
What kind of foundation?
You're not.
I'll do those first three, right?
But do I need to click it again?
Okay.
Okay, then hold on, before, it's not open quite yet. I'll go back, okay. Okay.
You've done that one now.
Oh, okay, it's open for polling. Stewardship. This is the largest of the categories. Which of you believe is the most important to meet our destination metrics or organizational goals? We have 7 so far.
They're all
Yeah,
pretty
we-
important.
okay, for another one.
8, 9,
Hold on, I'm thinking.
We don't know who didn't answer. We don't have to say it.
Okay, we have 10, okay. Tip the scale, yeah. Operational excellence. That's interesting that the others were tied.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the next one, the people risk. Okay, is this one open now? Okay, so the people risk is open for polling. Okay. Nine, one more? Maybe.
Waiting on Steve again.
Okay, we have 10, okay. Okay, authority and accountability.
One of these I'm aced.
Okay. All right, interesting.
Bring it up over here.
Yeah.
Okay, for the service risk, there are 2, patient experience, patient access. This is pretty tough. I know there's kind of 2 ends of the coin. We have 9, one more.
50-50 shot, Steve.
Okay, there we go. Okay, patient experience. And then population health. Population health is open. Seven,
Mine didn't go through.
8, 9, 10, okay. Interesting.
Okay, that's a tie.
Yeah, that's a tie, yeah.
Even though it looks me.
I'll have to take both of those, okay.
Revoke.
All right, academic risk. Academic risk is open. Nine, or 8, 9, 10, there we go.
All right.
GME support.
Better.
I think we can reach consensus.
I think we can call that a consensus.
I bless that as
As a consensus, okay, yeah, that's pretty clear. Oh, okay, I think that was the last one. So, thank you for your input in that. Let me talk about the next steps and kind of how this will, because this will not be the only discussion around this. As I've received feedback, this is the beginning of a conversation. And so what we wanted to do here was to get a little more clarity around what the top 8 to 10 risks are. what we're going to do going forward in the upcoming governance meeting is to kind of flesh this out a little bit more in terms of why these were selected, what specifically, what concerns or risk areas do we have in these 8 to 10 so that we can factor those into our work. That will be then followed up by operational risk owner sessions that myself, my team will have with the director group to understand where we are in the maturity curve, the maturity model with each of these, and where would we like to be. And then I'm going to pilot one of these so that we can see what this looks like tangibly. So, Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Is this when we vote Steve off the island?
We will need the remotes back, though. So.
Oh, we can't keep them all.
You know, even though we've done this once or twice, that's the point.
Ron, and to the board, I like the process, and as we even did it in governance, I thought it was a good process. I think it would be good if at some point we could see all of them side by side with how the staff rated, how the board rated, and then how the governance rated. Right.
We can do that.
Yeah, that'd be good, and then we, kind of vet that out as we look at the whole picture.
Yes, maybe we can do that in upcoming governance. Okay, that'd be great. We can do that.
Yeah.
I'll take that back.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Who knows? Steve might have to stay on the island. Okay. Thanks again, Ron. Okay. Next. Okay. Well, we only have two committees reporting this week or this month. Next, item 10 is item A under 10, action item, internal audit co-source professional service agreement between Tarrant County Hospital District and JPS Health Network and Catholic Health Care Audit Network.
Yeah.
So let me ask Ron, he'll come back, and Neil to talk about this.
Okay. What you have before you is a contract to co-source internal audit services with our internal audit function. Chan was selected through an RFP process. They are a specific vendor that all they do is internal audit, healthcare internal audit work. Very well respected in the industry, have some excellent proprietary software that we'll have access to really upgrade the output of our internal audit function. And the rationale for doing this is that we are, as we look to build our capabilities up internally, this is an interim measure that we're using. That's why it's only a 2-year contract, interim measure that we're using to keep momentum, develop some good infrastructure by utilizing these specialists and to help Michelle and team to have great output, as well as, and it's more than just staff augmentation, in addition to augmentation of doing the internal audit work, we'll also be building a data analytics capability so we can be smarter about how we use and how we do performer audits, as well as the risk assessment and governance and board reporting will come out of this. From a budgetary standpoint, in year one, it's $187,500 in year one. We will come have a savings in fiscal 16, as it mentioned there, of $130,000, a little bit more than that, mainly because we had accrued this year for 2 open positions in internal audit, as well as had budgeted for some consulting dollars anyway. And those positions have not been filled throughout this whole year, so that's been accrued. So the 187 will be about $130,500 less than what was in our current year budget. And then certainly upon approval, we'll, in our fiscal 17 budget, include the projected second year contract of the 386. Again, and I guess the last thing I would say is, I have a unique perspective in that having sat on the other side of the table and having done these services for both PricewaterhouseCoopers and Grant Thornton, and I know this industry really well. It is a challenge to get internal audit capabilities at this high of a level in the market, but we do. That is our intentions. That's why it's only a 2-year contract, and certainly to Dorothy's feedback before, this is our plan is while we are co-sourcing with Chan to continue to seek internal audit resources to fill these positions, and so as we do that, the amount of Chan resources that we'll use will diminish. So, Neil, I don't know if you want to.
At the Finance Committee meeting last month, Dorothy had 3 questions, and the committee tabled this contract at Finance and asked that Ron and Michelle and I get together with the vendor and first of all understand what Dorothy's questions were, and then come back with some modifications to the contract, which we did. A couple of questions that Dorothy had raised. One was, we get into this process, can we get out of it? We stuck for 2 years, and we've got an early termination clause in here. That's in there from the beginning. 30 days notice, and the contract by either party for any reason, cause or no cause. But the primary question that Dorothy raised was related to the floor in the contract that we would have to reach, actually. Otherwise, if the contract terminated, we wouldn't have access to the data. We changed that from we negotiated that from $250,000 floor to a $50,000 floor. We're certainly going to meet that, from what Ron and Michelle have been indicated to me. Talked with Dorothy about that. The other issue was that if the contract terminates, what happens to the work product? We've got clear language in here that the work product is owned by the district, regardless of when it's terminated, either by its term or during the term. So I think, Dorothy, those addressed your primary questions. So as General Counsel, we would recommend moving forward with approval.
Ron, I have one question that came up now that I didn't have before. Right now, this consulting firm will be doing what we had hoped to have as in-house bodies later on.
That's right.
Okay. Is there any potential for training of in-house based on using this firm?
Do some knowledge transfer?
No. Is there any chance that there are employees who are in the system that maybe could learn, or where we would have trained some individuals already in-house that we maybe wouldn't have to go out and recruit?
Well, you mean existing JPS employees who may have an interest in internal audit, but maybe not experienced, and that will be trained?
Or maybe in internal audit already?
Well, we don't have any. Essentially, an internal audit already is Michelle Atkins as the director, and Earl Parsons, who's the manager. That's really all the staff in internal audit currently. Okay. So the 2 open positions were really the only staff for internal audit, and so that's why I was saying earlier, as we look to recruit and fill those positions with qualified personnel, the amount of resources we'll use from Chan will diminish.
And I think the answer to your question, if you hire someone, you still have a contract, they could help with some of the intensive training that they might need.
Absolutely.
I think that's all he was saying.
Yes.
And my goal is that we will continue to recruit and bring someone on board so we can build up our own in-house knowledge.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
Need a motion?
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Weber, second by Mr. Fisher. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Next is resolution. Mr. Adams, resolution authorizing the assignment of interest in stock to JPS Foundation.
Let me explain. This is a little bit unique. We seldom ever see this come before you. This came to our attention after the last board meeting in March. For a number of years, the hospital district has been a member of an LLC, which is a group purchasing company. That company has decided to be merged with a stockholder company, and the interest that was that the hospital district owned was a membership units, which is permissible under the law, but the Constitution prohibits a public body from holding stock. So, in working with the company, the successor company, their attorney, and we're not unique. This is happening all over the country because most of their members were public bodies in states where they have constitutions that prohibit stockholder ownership. We suggested, along with some others, that we can't hold stock, but we have a foundation that we're the sole member of. Would you have any objection to you convert our membership to stock, and then ultimately it's going to be held by our foundation, basically in trust for the district? And that's what this documentation is about. We had a deadline in order to meet a deadline of March 31st that we didn't find out about until after the previous board meeting. Mr. Early has signed those on my recommendation as general counsel with Sharon Clark's input on the financial side of this. It's about Sharon, as I recall, almost a $2 million value that we have in our membership.
1.9.
Yeah, it's a considerable amount of value owned by the hospital district. This resolution you have before you is basically ratifying Robert's Act as CEO. That assignment document and the documents were clearly made subject to this board approving this resolution on or before April the 15th. So my recommendation would be that you approve Robert's Act and ratify his act of executing these documents so that we can protect the district's ownership in this stock.
Neil, so in essence, the asset in its entirety still remains within the control of the district.
Exactly.
It's just being held in trust for the
Exactly,
foundation.
and that's the point we made with the new successor company is that, we own membership, which we can own by law.
Right.
You've converted to a stock company, which we can't hold, but we have a sister company that does have that authority, and so that's basically how we got around that.
I'd move for approval, ratification of what Robert's executed.
Second.
I have questions, I'm sorry. So Vizient purchased it, and this 7,000 shares and change, it's worth about $2 million?
Yes.
Have there been distributions in the last few years, ever?
I
Or what's-
don't know. I can't answer the question to that. Have there been distributions? My understanding was that the value has accumulated over the years. It's sort of like dividend reinvestment, that we never did actually have any distributions of funds, to my knowledge. But I may be wrong on that, Sharon, but that's what I understood the process. And that's the reason.
I hate doing this with this much lead time. I'll just point that out.
With what?
Well, I would have liked to have had more time to consider this and look at it. I mean, maybe we want to sell this and get an annuity out of it or something for the hospital. I mean, once it goes,
Let me tell you the other side of this. By owning that membership and continuing to own that stock, the district has access to a group purchasing. They are a group purchasing company that allows us to buy massive amounts of products and equipment stuff online through this group purchasing, which saves tons of money. So it's not just owning the stock and having some value. It has significant value beyond its own. It's the value, its face value of its stock. It's something we use daily.
So is there a contract somewhere that talks about that?
Yes.
Have we talked about that in this group?
That contract's been approved. I didn't bring the contract or post it. I'll be happy to forward that to you. But we have a contract. We have a membership, but
Right.
we also have a contract as a user of the services.
Okay. And so there's somewhere that says that
We have a group purchasing product contract.
Okay.
But we are not diluting the asset and/or its value.
No, not at all.
It's staying
We're
its
protecting,
entirety.
what
It's
you're
just being
protecting is
held.
you're doing two things. You're protecting the ownership of the asset, and you're protecting the access to that group purchasing opportunity.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Mr. Norred, talking about the documents behind it, but it's the same thing we have. We're protecting that
Yes,
asset. It's just being held at the foundation level.
right.
But somebody's representing our interests in the LLC before, right?
Yes.
We had membership members in the
We did.
LLC. Okay, so when did the LLC meet? Where are the minutes for that?
I have no idea. I don't have that information available, but I can certainly provide that to you.
Well, we all know there are LLCs that that never really meet, right? And there are some LLCs that are very poorly run, some are very well run, and it's easy for people who are just trying to do business to never actually take care of that side of the house. And if we're gonna own or control a couple $1 million worth of assets that are, I'd like to see at some point every once in a while, the yearly meeting minutes and who are our other partners in this endeavor.
Okay.
All the basic things that anybody would want to know if you're going to own, what percentage is this? Is it 10% of the organization, or is this 2% of the organization?
But again,
I understand that we got to make a decision fast,
Right.
but I'd rather see an emergency meeting next time and have all this stuff fleshed out. You know, this.
Okay.
but I'll ask staff a question. The intent of the owning this is for the savings over years of huge volumes, like in a buying club, that we have saved tremendous amounts of dollars to the district by being a member. I agree about those legal questions, Warren, that to be looked into, but we're not changing what we have been doing. We're not fixing to distribute out all the money and
Right.
the what we
changing it.
had.
We're just preserving what we
The board
had.
still has, we should look
Correct.
into those.
And no one necessarily called us and said, we're gonna give you input as to whether we're an LLC or whether
Right.
we change your.
Yeah, but we do
stock
have
standard.
input. We're a member of the LLC.
Right.
We have input. So there was a decision made, and I'd like to know when that was made. Why was that made? Okay, so if the LLC sold all of its interest on behalf of everybody to this publicly held organization or whatever kind of organization it is, that has to be consciously made. The people made that decision. Who made that decision? And did we make that decision? When did we make that decision? I mean, I'm not suggesting that anything untoward's going on, but this is how bad things happen, is whenever people don't watch the house. Anyway.
But as a person who made the second, the other thing I want to bring up is that right now it appears that ownership, as it currently is just a no-go. We have to move from that,
Right.
and I'll agree with Warren's point that we need to know the details, but we also imminently need to change the ownership so we can look into the details. Is that a way to?
Right now, the only thing that's changing is the fact that you have ownership in stock that equates the value of your membership units you had in the predecessor organization. So,
It has been moved by Mr. Fisher, second by Dr. Lowry. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
and Warren, I'll get you that information.
But maybe we could just bring it back and educate the
I'll provide it to
whole board
everybody.
on what's
I'll
going
provide
on.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, we no longer own it. It's too late.
We do own it.
But you still got
No, we don't own it.
$1.9
The
million
foundation owns
tied
it.
up.
The foundation's gonna own it, right?
The foundation has it in trust for the benefit of the district, and the district is you.
And if it was worth $10 million theoretically.
And it's clear in the assignment document that was posted online, it's being signed to the foundation to be held for the benefit of the district.
Well, okay, fine.
Okay.
There's a Constitution, right? Why do we do this in the first place? Because the Constitution says we can't own members of
Exactly,
this,
and
right?
if we can't own stock, then we're gonna give up $2 million in asset, but more importantly, we're gonna give up access to what I refer to as a buy board. Some people refer to as a purchasing organization that saves the district millions of dollars every year.
That's not the question. You know, the question is if we're either complying with the law or not. If we're saying that we can't hold this, so we're gonna wink and a nod, move it over to this foundation that we do control, we either control it or we don't. And so we've made the decision and we can go on. You know, we just shouldn't, I'd like to know ahead of time when we do these kinds of things, more than this.
Let me say one thing. I hear what you're saying. I would agree with that totally. My question is, and I really want to say this to the entire board. This item was on the portal. Right? That it would be helpful if it's on the portal that we, and maybe Warren, you may not be aware of that, and maybe Roger, as the newest as members of the board, but when we see things such as this and we have questions, that if we submit it to Suzanne, that some of that can be sent back, so as we arrive at board meeting, those things could be better explained. Because I hear your position, my back's to the wall, you want me to approve it, but I haven't been able to really vet my questions. Yeah.
And I'll say that sometimes I read these things with more as soon as I get it, because I got time, and sometimes I get it this morning, and sometimes I'm reading it right now. So if I see it with plenty of time, I am happy to ask the questions ahead of time so that we're all going, oh, I don't know, if we get back to you. That's no fun.
And I've said to each one of you, and many of you do this, Dorothy called me probably more than anybody about questions she might have on the contract, and that's good. But that's okay. That's why I'm here. If you've got questions, when you see something on the agenda, pick up the phone and call me. I'm not picking on Dorothy. Dorothy, I would encourage you all to do what Dorothy does, because I think that that's the time to ask questions, and if I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you. So, but I'll follow back up with this with you. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want any board member to ever think that we're going to put someone on the agenda and then say it's a rush, we got to do it to push it down your throat, and you don't fully understand. So, okay. Actually, that now consent agenda. Need approval to approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Mr. Bowles, second by Chuck Weber, for approval by consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposers? Okay. Mr. Adams?
I have nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that brings us to,
I don't know, do we have,
Didn't somebody say they had?
Dorothy, did you say you had something to
Yes,
close?
we have a closed session item.
Yeah.
well, we now we're reconvening executive session pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Code for the following. Reconvene in executive session.
All right. It won't be long.
Open session.
Okay, let's see which.
Item on our agenda is appointments and reappointments. Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Chuck Weber, second by Steve Montgomery, for approval of appointments and reappointments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposers? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I got a few things I want to talk about, but that's okay.
You got time
Yeah,
now.
you got time now.
All in favor?
You got all the time in the world. That's the way
That's what happens when you're retired, you have all this time to talk.
Well, and that's how you clear a crowd. You say, I'd like to say a few words. I'm out of here.
Okay, I got it.